Yeah. Thank you for your patience, everyone. So going to treasurer, we have here, our resolution is charging tax items and omitted tax paid. You get a motion for Perkins, second by Kern. Thank you. Go ahead, Renee.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, good. I couldn't hear you at all before. So this resolution is a an annual resolution, the charging tax items. We bring this once a year. This resolution allows us to put these items on the upcoming tax levy. It represents tax refunds, cancellation of taxes, and other assessment errors.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Excellent. Thank you. Next, we have adopting mortgage.
Okay. So this resolution, we bring a similar one in May, and we bring one at this time of year. It's semi-annual. It allows us to distribute the monies collected by the county clerk's office that are due to the towns. The county clerk turns these funds over to my office on a monthly basis. Sorry about the dog. Twice per year, the county clerk submits a report to the state for approval, and upon approval from the state, we submit a resolution for your adoption. This represents the amount collected April 1st through September 30th, 2023.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next, we have on the agenda, we have highway. First resolution is approving the supplemental agreement number 1 with Barton Longidus DPC for construction inspection services for Lazy River Road of Grass River, PIN 3341820, PIN 775332. Thank you. Second by Mr. Nisha. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you. Resolution tonight is for a supplementary agreement with Barton Longidus, who is the engineering firm on the Lazy River Road project. This is Bridge New York, a project which is 95% federally funded, 5% local. I do want to point out with we do have sufficient federal funding. However, the bid for the project and the engineering charges are slightly over what was anticipated. But like I said, we will get the 95%, but in the 2024 budget, we will need to increase the local cost of $6,000 to $7,000 to accommodate construction and construction inspection services that will be needed for this project.
Discussion, Mr. Nisha.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Don, would you indulge me and explain to the board, maybe some of the members that are not familiar with the freshwater mussel?
Absolutely. The freshwater mussels are in certain waterways, quite a few waterways in St. Lawrence County. And when we have our federal aid, and when we get a permit from the DEC for a project where we're going to be doing a bridge replacement project, we have to first ascertain is there freshwater mussels located in the area. So we have to go and hire divers through the engineering firm and count the actual mussels that are on the riverbank. Once they are located during construction, that's one of the reasons why the costs are a little higher than we anticipated. We have to relocate the mussels out of the area to another area in the river. And then we have to send divers down again to monitor the health of the freshwater mussels during the construction project and after.
Follow.
And I appreciate that, Don. The only reason I asked because, when, Highway Department did the bridge in Russell. And, I was on the, obviously Russell was in my district, but I was also on the highway committee at the time. And Don called me and told me about the freshwater mussel survey that we had to do with that bridge. I will not tell you what my reaction was.
Kern?
Well, I was having problems here, and Don, I'm sorry. Do you say 6 or 7 or 67?
6 to 7, around 7,000,
Oh,
and that's local cost.
thank you. That's
Any-
all.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Next up, we have authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Carol L. Morloff for cleaning services for the highways and roads and golf course. First, Perkins.
Yes, since the construction of our new outpost facilities, we have not had cleaning services. Equipment operators and such have been doing that task. With the significant investment, I believe that it's beneficial to have the buildings professionally cleaned. And the purchasing department put this out for bid for not only highway, but also for other departments. So, but this will address the Lisbon outpost.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Neola Enterprises for cleaning services at the Department of Highways, Potsdam and Russell Outpost. Perkins. That's it.
Yes, again, very similar situation, just a different contractor for the new Potsdam and the new Russell outpost, same contractor providing service for both.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Next, approving the supplemental agreement number 3 with Stantec Consulting Services for construction inspection services for the 2022 Bridge New York project, County Route 35 Slab Bridge over Truck Brook BIN 334 1700 PIN 775 394. We have Perkins, second. Ms. Byrne, that's it.
Thank you. This was also a construction project that we awarded to the contractor to construct. This is the design consultant that was on that project. Now they are going to be providing the construction inspection services. And again, likely around $7,000 for this project will be needed to be modified in the 2024 budget for local costs.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next is authorizing the chair to sign an agreement with CNS Engineering for preliminary plans and cost estimates. Bert, second by Ms. Byrne. Thank you.
Yes. If you may indulge me, what I'd like to do is also, along with this resolution, first give you an update on the expenditures and revenues associated with the construction of 3 facilities, because we're referencing that in the resolution. Total appropriations for all 3 outpost facilities, including the buildings, salt buildings. So 6 structures altogether and all the site work. You appropriated $10,101,000. At this point, total cost is $9,890,069, and we bonded for $3 million. We received a state grant for the Russell salt storage at $400,000. we took 3.701 thousand from 1,701,000 from highway fund balance and 3 million from fund balance, leaving just over $210,000 unexpended from the 6 facilities that we constructed. So the premise behind this resolution is to hire CNS engineers to give preliminary drawings and cost estimates for possibly moving the maintenance operations from 44 Park Street, possibly to the location where the new Potsdam outpost is located. So taking 12,500 from the funds already that have been appropriated for the other projects. CNS engineers used the LDSA local procurement to get a price from CNS Engineering. CNS Engineering also did a total facility for Madison County in a rural area such as what we would be doing here without public water or any of those, and was able to get up past all the environmental hurdles and items such as sprinklers and that on well water. And so I think they're very well placed to design a facility for St. Lawrence County.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Last, sir, you have the future budget of New York projects for discussion.
Yes, thank you. We also have approved just in the recent months the design for 2 additional structures on County Road 22 at Fowler and County Road 34 in Potsdam. But it's now time to submit for applications for the next round. So this will be probably projects that would be constructed in at earliest start in 2026, but more probable in 2027. And currently the cap on projects is 5 million. But the total expenditure for example, Lazy River at this point is approaching the $5 million category at this point. And so with that threshold in mind and moving several years down the road, we will likely need to put in our grant applications that the projects, if they go over the 5 million threshold, which like I said, will likely do, and especially some of the projects that are upcoming, we may need to have a statement in the grant application that possibly we use either CHIPS funding or some other local funds to go above and beyond the 5 million. So that's really what I'm asking the board is if they would be okay with putting that in the grant application. Because without having some statement of how you're going to finance projects, if they go over 5 million, likely the project application would be rejected.
Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don, is this something we've done in the past?
We have not needed to go to that realm because of where the projects have all come in below the 5 million. However, I can see some projects that we need to put on the agenda that will exceed 5 million. It may exceed 8 million, quite frankly.
Makes good sense. Thanks.
Well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. Next is solid waste with John Chambers. For this resolution, it's authorizing the new chair to sign a contract with Barden Lodges ETC for building construction inspection services for the Governor Transfer Station Improvement Project, modifying the 2024 budget for solid waste. Second by Mr. Turkish, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Again, I would like to kind of, update, the board where we stand, from the recycling, the transfer station project with retained earnings. That's what we use for constructing the Ogdensburg recycling transfer, station. At the end of 2022, we stood at over 2.3 million in retained earnings. We utilized funds out of that to construct that project, and we should be ending estimated ending year end for 2023 should be in excess of 1.1 million remaining in the retained earning account, which I would be proposing with this resolution is to take the funds out of that fund of this project. The Governor Transfer Station, we're proposing this project. Right now, the crane that's inside the compactor, the apprentice machine, that material handler is red tagged out. The steel frame is basically up on stilts above the tractor trailers that are in there that we load material in as the structural failure. So we've shut that down. And so now we are compacting garbage in Governor with an excavator until we can get that fixed. So my proposal would be to take the funds from that retained earnings within the solid waste department and use them to reconstruct, rebuild the framework under the apprentice, and also to upgrade the scale area. The scale foundation and such need to be reworked. Plan would be to refurbish the old scales from the Ogdensburg transfer station and bring them in as on a temporary basis, and then tear out the existing scales at Governor transfer station, and then put the refurbished scales in place permanently. So multifaceted plan to keep the Governor transfer station operation.
Discussion. Mr. Nisha.
Thank you. Don, with the apprentice loader, what are the plans? I mean, have we done a failure analysis on that to see what contributed to it? Was it the design failure? Was it a wrong use of the equipment? What are we taking into consideration something to make sure that this doesn't?
Absolutely, the entire frame will need to be replaced. It's metal fatigue from basically 30 some years of use. So we've had metal fatigue. So probably a little under designed initially, and so that's why the entire steel structure has to be removed. It most definitely has fatigue, where you can see where the girders have been flexing. It's actually turned to bright metal from the actual movement in the steel structures. They've gone beyond their capacities, so they need to be totally scrapped and replaced.
Mr. Smithers.
Yep. Don, when is this anticipated to start to be done, and how long will it take to do it? And will the Governor Transfer Station then not be able to weigh while this is being done?
No, we anticipate to keep the facility open and schedule the contract work offline. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to refurbish the Ogdensburg scales and put them in parallel with the existing ones. And that way, when we can keep everything operational, we've got to get the Ogdensburg scales in a temporary basis. Basically on the, we're gonna have to build a ramp mount them on the existing blacktop, and then tear the foundations out for the existing Governor scales, and then we'll move them over into their final location. The intent is to keep the scales and the transfer station open to the public, just like we always have, and schedule contractor work off work hours. And I would anticipate that we would be putting this out to bid, you know, in the spring and getting this constructed during the summer months.
Thank you.
Well, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Thank you. Next up, we have real property. First resolution is elections, real property and community college appointments for year 2024. The motion. Perkins, second by Saul. Thank you. You're ready, sir.
The first resolution that we have tonight is the annual resolution for the board elections, as well as real property charges and community college charges. These three, once they're adopted, will be on the 24 tax bill in January. The election charges is for 2022 expenses. Real properties charges are for 2023 expenses. And community college charges are for the 2022 fees.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have modifying the 2023 budget for real property tax office for the interdepartmental property equipment and other fees and services. Motion, Perkins, second by Mr. Curran, thank you. Sure.
This next resolution is the modifying of the real property budget for $2,100. We've experienced some increased expenses in costs this past year. So through software programs, a color printer that we are purchasing and paying off a loaner. This just happens to be the fact that we are over budget and revenue by $2,750. So I believe that can be on hand.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Finally, we have just general discussion for the Ogdensburg transition to county tax collection schedule for 2024.
Just to bring up the date of where we are with this, as you remember, City of Ogdensburg is now required the county to create a town, excuse me, a city and county tax bill for January. That's moving along in our office. We have got their re-levies, which re-levies come from towns. In this case, it's coming from the City of Ogdensburg, and they are water and sewer re-levies. Charges that folks haven't paid throughout the year, or they're behind in. So these re-levy put on this current city and county bill. In the past, our office has created a county-only bill 2 years ago. That was a change. Before that, the City of Ogdensburg created the city and county bill together and mailed that out in April. Years ago, they wanted to split that function up. So the county, we created our own county bill for January. And they continue to send out an April bill for just the city in April. This year is different because it's putting both of those bills together, very similar to what we do with every town out there.
Wasn't sure if either treasurer or county attorney had any other comments. Any questions?
Oh, what? Renee, do you have anything?
Can you hear me okay? Just checking.
Yep.
Okay, I actually don't have a lot to add, but I can just tell you what stage we're at with it. As far as our role is really essentially going to be the collection side of things. Real property does the billing piece. So where we are right now with that is the city comptroller is, I think, playing a little bit of phone tag right now with the software company. They're trying to get together in order to do the installation of the software on the city's computers so that they can do the tax collection there in their office. After that gets installed, my deputy, Emily Wilson from my office, will go and just do a little bit of training with the city staff to get them started on how to collect it. And But right now, we're just kind of in limbo. We're planning on that happening probably in early December, us being able to go train though.
Mr. Nishi. Sure.
Bruce, Renee, do we, at this point, do we know what the total amount of the water and sewer re-levies are for the city of Ogden?
We got that number. I can get that for you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Bruce.
Anyone? Yes, yeah, our county attorney. First resolution is adopting the proposed local law number B for the year 2023, setting policy on acquisition and sale of tax delinquent property in St. Lawrence County. Motion. Perkins.
This local law, as I've discussed with you before, is the local law that establishes the policy that the county has with respect to our enforcement on the tax foreclosed property. Previously, we did not have any provision related to our blighted property program, which the board established in the last year and a half. We also did not have a provision. Let me correct that statement. We had a provision, but given the Hennepin decision, we need to get rid of the provision that provides for a last date of redemption imposed by local law. That will have us default to the state's last date of redemption.
Discussion. Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Next, we have adopting the proposed local law C for the year 2023, amending local law 3 for the year 1993, amending local law number 2, year 1956, St. Lawrence County installment payment of town, city, county, and school real property tax law. Mr. Aaron, second by Ms. Perkins.
1956 was actually a really big year for the county. We established our self-insurance fund and workers' compensation program in that year also. But this was probably of more importance to the local constituents. This local law establishes the ability for installment plan collections to occur for real property tax payments. And originally, this local law was only permitted to be used by town and village residents for paying their taxes. The amendments that would be included in this local law would permit city residents to now take advantage of that lenience that's afforded for the collection of real property tax.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Third. Next, the vacancy review committee. Mr. Doyle.
So to wrap up this month, we have 2 remaining. That's that. Highway superintendent will speak to heavy equipment operators, 1 in the highway department and 1 in solid waste. That.
Thank you. Yes, the heavy equipment operator position resulted from a retirement of a long-term employee at the Department of Highways. The heavy equipment operator, that title is distinguished above the motor equipment operator of handling more complex equipment than the motor equipment operator. However, the heavy equipment operator is responsible for as well as other needed position. Yes. The other position is the heavy equipment operator at the Department of Solid Waste. This position is vacated due to a promotion. This summer, we had our senior site crew leader retire, and we promoted one of our site crew leaders to that position. And so this has caused a cascading effect within the department, leading to now to the heavy equipment operator position now being vacant after promotions. So The heavy equipment operator can do multiple tasks within the department, from scale operation to running the apprentice loader, or dealing with the public, or hauling our recyclables, or MSW to the other facility for transport. So again, the jack of all trades position. The heavy equipment operators basically are also at the Department of Solid Waste, is basically an entry level position.
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay, only 13 slides left. Wasn't 15, but shortly ago. Couple repeats, but just really to remind you of our process, talk through what we're looking at, and certainly take any and all of your questions. Slide. So the departments that we're looking at tonight are the Finance Committee departments, which are 6. They include 193 staff of our 802 for 2024. And they compile 154.9 million of our 297 million appropriations. So certainly, fewer departments than you've seen, and more of the appropriations associated with our budget. Slide. The breakdown that I've been providing each committee to you is the layout of total staff between departments, the total appropriations, so that you can see the spend. Now, often when we just look at county costs, we lose sight of exactly what each department is costing the county. And when you look at the highway department, we'll talk about that in a little more detail, you see a very big number there, $36 million. But when you look at the county cost, you also note the fact that the federal and state revenue that we talked about a little bit earlier, taking advantage of, really make managing our departments, particularly highway, manageable.
Is there a way we can minimize or remove the little icons of our video?
Oh, sure.
Thank you so much.
One moment, please. So you can see the breakdown. Certainly county administrator's office, 22% of our levy, highway department, almost 25%. And then you also see our real property office, county attorney, which like highway has several funds within the department. And our treasurer's office, which manages the bulk of the revenue, separate from social services being the only other department with similar revenue. Slide. So the first department I wanted to talk about tonight was the Department of Highways. Many of you were able to join us for the highway tour and got to see for yourselves both the miles that have been paved and a few key bridge projects that were completed by county staff. We certainly hope that in future years you can plan it a little further out so that your schedules will provide an opportunity for you to join us for the tour. I think it was very worthwhile both to hear the narrative, but also see it in person. Both 22 and in 23, we were able to pave 10 additional miles of road. Now that speaks to the health of our finances. In looking at where the year closed, trying to take an opportunity rather than put it all in savings to say what else, where else could our money be spent to benefit the county. And in this situation, in the first year in 22, State Route 56, County Route 17, or between County Route 25 to 27, the location of Irish Hill, and State Route 56 to County Route 49. Those are all areas that saw as many as 3 miles of road paved on top of what was already planned and approved in the 2022 budget. And then this year, you were able actually on the tour to see a few of those segments. County Route 27 to the Town Line Road, the entire segment between State Route 56 and County Route 49 are just a couple of samples, and I'll share these with you because they're areas that are really impressive for making our dollars go further. These were all county dollars spent to pave 20 more miles of road. You did hear tonight, ahead of requesting engineering, an opportunity to be updated on spend associated with our outpost projects. Lisbon and Russell are complete with very few exceptions. Our risk manager has gone out. We now have cleaning services that you've approved or will for 2024. Our hope is to keep our facilities looking today, much like looking in 10 years, much like they do today. And I can say that at our correctional facility in a similar fashion. We've taken great care to maintain the facilities because we also are looking to deal with the deferred maintenance over these last few years. So keeping things in order, taking care of our facilities. Again, the folks on the tour got to see the Potsdam outpost and appreciate that these are great facilities that are being kept in tip-top shape. Last is the Potsdam, which was the financed outpost for 3.5 million. So all 3 projects done under 10 million, as you heard tonight, and under budget, and also on a schedule that provided operations to not be interrupted and to in the most part, vacate the village of Canton. So I think the truck traffic, except for maintenance and a few routes, are running from the Lisbon, Russell, and Potsdam outposts. So the total appropriations, as I mentioned in the first slide, is 36.3 million. Revenue coming in from a variety of sources, federal and state, is 22.8. The request for the spend for 24 is 13.5. Next slide. Solid waste, being our enterprise fund, has 0 impact on our levy. You'll recall a few years ago, we cleaned up the payment for the liability and casualty fund, which I'll talk about in a few moments on the county attorney slide. But this department has a spend approximately 5.7 million and has revenue to offset that cost for a 0 burden on the levy. As you heard about tonight as well, the scale renovation project in Governor, the recycling project and the reorientation at Ogdensburg, that will finish in 2024. And Messina is continuing to see improvements as well. Next slide. The treasurer's office. Now, probably the number we've talked about the most so far is our sales tax number. But that's not the only revenue number that's included in the budget. So I wanted to illustrate for you a few areas within the treasurer's budget. Again, not every line. Certainly there's revenue in other departments, but an overall impact associated with the increase of 8.4 million to our sales tax number for 2024. Now we're projecting 82.45, so 82.5 million for 2024, and we're budgeting 80. So we're reducing our expectation from this year's performance by almost $2.5 million. So we had a good opportunity to talk a little bit about that at both of the last committees, and we recognize that the challenge is both seeing inflation come down more in line with what it should look like, as well as real estate start to resolve itself in a little more normal fashion. All of those goods and services and purchases will have an impact on our sales tax. Also seeing fuel prices be reduced a little bit more than we've seen recently. So all of that has an impact. We've seen an increase though, benefiting, much like we have personally, in our interest and earnings, and increase that because we also in 2023 weren't looking so good when we put the budget together a year ago. So that's been increased by 1.1 million. Now we talked a little bit about health insurance at the very first presentation and about medical and health insurance itself remain flat. However, the others, including pharmacy that you now break out in the treasurer's accounts, has increased. And you'll also remember that the 800 accounts are where the breakdown of health insurance benefits sit in department budgets. We have the appropriations in department budgets, and we have the revenue in the treasurer's office. So that increase has been distributed and is collected for that 1.4 million increase. So that we can put in for any claims or reimbursement and include the total cost of operations for the departments. That is why benefits sit out in departments, so that you individually and the public get a better idea of what departments cost, because it includes a salary. Many years ago, the board agreed it should also include the benefit cost. Occupancy tax has been slightly increased from 600 to 625,000. But we've also made a reduction in our tribal state compact funds expectation to equate what we saw when they caught up a payment in 2021. Now that may come in higher, and if that were true, we would come back to you for increases to both Brazier and Messina so that we could catch up the payments to match the increase in revenue. But we also didn't want to artificially inflate the revenue for tribal state compact without knowing what that number will look like. Our hope is those funds will begin flowing soon, but we haven't seen them yet. The auction surplus we talked about in that very first list I showed to you or talked you through of when I made the request for the override. And that's as a result of the Hennepin decision to be able no longer to recognize the revenue for the auction surplus. So that's a decrease of 600,000 in our revenue. So there's quite a few revenue sources in play. You also saw when we talked about the county clerk's budget that we reduced our revenue expectation based upon what we're seeing for trends. We're trying to make those realistic, and we believe these are realistic in the 2024 budget. Next slide. As a reminder, the county attorney's office has the administration, but also has two separate funds, self-insurance, which is workers' comp, and the liability fund. And this year, the liability fund was distributed entirely. So I talked a little bit ago about solid waste and the payment that was returned over 4 years annually at $213,250. They've completed that payment. And that payment was for many years of the liability fund before solid waste had their own insurance policy. They took care of the claims made against the county. We recognize that as an enterprise fund, it should pay for itself and not come from county dollars. So we broke it up into 4 years. We graduated the payments, but the impact of those payments on an annual basis was a benefit to departments because it lowered the cost to pay for the fund. Now that fund's been paid, and last year, you may recall, we used 200,000 in our fund balance appropriation to offset the cost for departments to graduate back up to what the actual cost is in liability and casualty. We allowed for 1 year to graduate that cost. This year, we're back at fully funding from departments. And that's based more now than it was before on experience. Next slide. I wanted to show you, because we've had several conversations about chargebacks, the cost of the real property tax office, which is 1.02% of our levy, based in the resolution you approved tonight to provide for the chargeback. That annual county cost is $548,000 after the revenue that's collected in the chargeback. The transition we've made in not only in real property, but also in the treasurer's office in the tax collection area has been tremendous over the last year. The strides that have been made by department staff to not only learn the process, but implement the changes and add Augsburg to the process are impressive. And our hope is going forward, their knowledge will grow. We've been able to bring back a former employee for a short period of time to assist with that process because we believe in the value of bringing that information forward to our new staff. We've offered this year for the first time that basic level of mapping for free that many other counties do. And we still received additional revenue from those who still subscribe because they use these services for their business. And then we're also adjusting to make that chargeback for Augsburg. Next slide. And now 22% of the levy is the county administrator's office. And I've included on the left-hand column the categories that fall under this umbrella. The first is the special items, which I'll spend a little more time on in contingency and capital reserve discussion. But I did want to point out for you The totals associated with our partner agencies this year. So the IDA will remain flat at 400,000. The Chamber of Commerce will see a $19,000 increase over this year based on their 5-year rolling average. We are yet to negotiate a contract for future years with the IDA and with the Chamber, but we'll bring those with recommendations for your approval. The Historical Association received a $3,778 increase. They have struggled over the last few years with leadership as well as their funding sources. And so my hope is to work with them. They now have an increased appropriation to $20,000. We also, in 2020, reduced the responsibilities associated with the Historical Association. You may recall when we extracted the historian, and the county has hired our own historian. And we've seen a dramatic change in the ability when 2 jobs aren't forced into one title. But now the county's spending $20,000 on our historian. And so looking at the archives, seeing a modest increase associated with this as the Historical Association gets their feet under them and some longer term leadership in place, we believe is important. Soil and Water Conservation District received a $20,000 increase associated with the work that they're doing and their forester and the work that they've done for us on the ARPA for the Emerald Ash Borer contracts. The forestry contract at this time will remain at $80,000. And finally, Cornell Cooperative Extension, which is a split appropriation, you'll recall, associated with their nutrition work and public health. That was no change at $109,000. And the $7,143 increased to the total of $330,000 for the board appropriation. So those are your partner agencies for 2024. The budget also includes Board of Legislators, the board office, our central printing and mail shops, our purchasing office, as well as in recent years, we've added buildings and grounds. Next slide. Now to break down a little further, we talked briefly about it at the original presentation, but with regards to contingency, I always like to spend a little more time on this with you. The capital reserve million that's set aside to contribute the continued $200,000 for hazard tree removal. My hope is in 2025 to make this a budget line rather than a contingency item. We'd like to get a plan together to bring you so that hazard tree removal can continue. Information technology, continuing their upgrades. Family court renovations, as we all know, there'll be an election next year for a second family court judge. And we've set aside some funds to begin that work. Our hope is to share that cost with OCA. But to get that initial work started, we want to bring you engineering opportunities and be able to get that project done. We have 1 year. Office for the Aging, as you heard about last week, they need funds for refrigeration equipment and for their fleet, which is a little bit further down. Equipment for the mailroom, we're looking at potentially purchasing an envelope printer so that we no longer have to order envelopes. Doing this in-house has also provided an opportunity to provide that for all of our county departments. And then lastly, you'll see if you look at the treasurer's budget, that's where our fleet is located. We've reduced that appropriation, but this would actually be for new fleet vehicles. We've had a very difficult time getting our fleet this year, and we anticipate that to continue. So we reduced the appropriation not to grow the fleet, but also look at careful plans for expanding our nutrition routes. So that sets aside, it's set aside in the capital reserve. In the fund balance policy, the board guided me in June, as we do every year, to a discussion about what to do as we're nearing our 15%. The appropriation was to continue. However, it's been significantly reduced. Our energy, with the unpredictability of fuel and heating costs, set aside some additional funds there, but it also has seen a 3% increase across department budgets. I will continue until the board makes other policies, setting aside 25% of the overtime request, so that, and often you have departments come back to explain to you, that is, I believe, why the board was so well versed in the jail issue that we had with corrections, and led to some discussions about adding positions rather than just paying more overtime. Again, we're only in our second year, beginning our second year of the MAP program. As of today, we have 50 individuals of our population of 108 incarcerated individuals at the correctional facility. While that's unpredictable, we want to set some funds aside. Our vacation buyback benefit is being utilized by staff. Generally, we budget between 100 and 120. So we're setting aside 150 for 2024. Similarly, I believe we set aside 225 in 2023, and we're increasing that with our increased numbers. Our expectation is that folks will take the buyout. And the untargeted is set at 1 million. Now, in the board share, you can track this every meeting, because I know sometimes making decisions committee by committee, you lose the cumulative effect of contingency. So each month that is updated for you in the board share under 2023 contingency spend. You can see each resolution number, you can see the amount and see if it's targeted or untargeted. So you can follow along with the spend annually. Hi. The recommendation for the trail fund. So we are just finishing our 2nd year of the trail fund, and we have seen an increase or stability to our revenue. We're looking at about $91,000 for 2024, similar to what we saw this year. Now, when the original fund was put together, and that's the first column, you can see the recommendations for the spend. We didn't want a trail fund set up without any direction from the board on how it was to be spent. So the initial approach was, as you see there, 60 for maintenance, 15 for trail expansion, 10% for equipment repairs, 10% contingency, and 5% administration. And as we've moved through, it doesn't always fall directly to those percentages. The goals of the Trails Committee, the placement of the trail, and the challenges we face trying to expand the trail may take these percentages to a different number. So because of that, we also say now we have 2 years of experience. What we'd like to recommend is a range. Now, I also talked to legislators Denisha and Perkins this evening. I'm going to meet with them to go over this. This is a recommendation, so it doesn't require a decision. But what we'd like to see is a range of percentages for these areas going forward. I think it makes a lot of sense depending on where we are in the year and where we're moving with the trail to allow some flexibility for determinations to be made on an annual basis. So as you can see, the range 30 to 60 on maintenance, trail expansion 10 to 20, it still captures that 15. Equipment repairs this year, or last year rather, was very heavy on equipment purchases. So there shouldn't be as many repairs, but our equipment spend was up. And we have those numbers, I can share those out with you. The contingency, I didn't go above what the board's adopted for contingency for the county, but made a range of 5 to 15 depending on the year. And then for administration, what we do know is our trail coordinator has been in the general fund since inception. Transferring a portion of that for 2024 is included in the budget, and the administration with legal fees, different things like that, may change year over year. So we'd like to add a range to that as well. What is important to note is that all funds every year are reinvested in the trail. That was the board's goal, and that has been the implementation. We also created a reserve the first year, and there's 13,000 set aside. None of the funds that come in from Trail Pass purchases go to the general fund. Next slide. So here we have your tentative budget summary. Going all the way back to the beginning, the appropriations are up 8.3%. Our revenue is up 9.2%. And our county cost request is $2.3 million over where we are this year. We are not applying fund balance to the budget because our full intent is to bring you another request to utilize funds for paving in 2024 and also to utilize fund balance for our public safety complex project. So there will be a spend. We haven't used that to buy down the levy for 2024. So the percent change overall is 4.5%. The tax cap allowed 3.29%. So the request is just under 600,000 over what the tax cap provides. Next slide. Now for next steps. This evening, you'll be requested here very shortly to vote to override the tax cap. We voted for the proposed public hearing date. This would allow for the adopting of the resolution to go on the December meeting, as well as for the public hearing to be set. And shortly also, Chair Jeanette will ask for delivery of the tentative budget to the full board. So those are the important steps tonight to consider if there are no questions and there's no changes to the tentative budget, so that you know where we are. And then If those two things happen, we then have the opportunity for board members to review the budget as it stands for 6 days. On Monday, December 4th, we'll hold the public hearing at 5:55 and then consider the resolution to adopt during the meeting. And once adopted, we'll advertise for the public 2 times within 20 days of adoption. And that will allow January 1st for the budget to be available and ready for use in operations. Next slide. Any questions?
Ruth, on the tribal state compact monies that we received this year, how current is that, and how much up to date are they as far as that goes? In the past, they've been quite late in paying the county those funds.
So we have not received any tribal state compact funds this year. We are, I believe, 7 quarters behind. I can verify that for you and get the total amount. If it were the payment we received before, what that would look like. We never know exactly how much we'll receive, but we always share out 50% or 25 to Brazier, 25 to Messina. So we have been in conversations. There are efforts to try and get those funds flowing again, but we have not seen any.
I do have another question. Last week, I wrote down that DSS department was 74% of the tax levy. And this week, I have written down that highway is 25% of the tax levy. And the county administrator's office is 22%. Just with those 3, that comes up to over 100%. So where am I going wrong with that?
You're not. The treasurer's office, did you see that number? We actually had this conversation. It's a negative 85%. So we work forward and then we work back.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to thank you for the level of detail and comprehensiveness in your presentation. Obviously, my first year in the board's first budget process, I was able to sit in the peanut gallery last year, but as daunting it is to get my head wrapped around our budget, your presentation has been very helpful. And any deficiency on my part is not your fault. It's mine. So thank you so much. I just want to appreciate all the work you and your team puts into this every year. I think given the circumstances that we live in and the economy that we have around us, it looks like this is a real valiant effort to put together a responsible budget. Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Burke.
The tribal compact. 7 quarters, what would that equal? In dollars.
Let me get that for you. I can let you know what we paid last time.
And one more question.
Sure.
Is the state an intermediary in that process, or directly from the county?
The state is the intermediary.
And is it the state that's holding us up? Or do we know that?
We don't know
We do.
Sure.
that. Mr. Burke literally stole.
My apologies. Great.
Ruth, your budget, you guys have done a great job, and your budget committee's done a great job. Could you run through the names of the people on the budget committees? Because, over the years, I'm not quite sure who's on the budget committee these days, but I know it's a team effort, and a lot of people put a lot of work into it.
I'd be happy to. So some are with us tonight. Jason Popenhauer, Johnny Dorothy, hiding behind a computer over there. Karen Bajork. We don't have, Renee Cole is in the background. Deb Bridges, David Thompson. There are, and then I could list all my department heads and all the fiscal people and all, the group that sits and meets with departments, I think has a very difficult lift that we have understood since at least the day I took office. And that is to make the board's work easy. And so that really requires a lot of discussion with departments, a lot of follow-up with departments, and this group is always up to the task, along with the job they continue to do every day. So thank you for mentioning that.
that if you would just pass on to all of them how much we appreciate the extra work that they do of, you know, being the bad guys and saying no to departments when they come in and ask for things. You know, these are their friends. It's never easy. Certainly not easy for you, but we do appreciate all the committee's efforts to look out for the best interests of the taxpayers of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, and I cannot forget Deb Bridges, who pulls it all together. She is instrumental. She's Renee's deputy treasurer. She is another key spoke in the wheel that makes it all happen. So thank you.
Well. Thank you. Okay. So, yes, so we need to go for a motion to deliver the budget to the full board. This current second, Mr. Perkins, Mr. Lightfoot, okay, everybody. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carried. Next, we have, sticking with our current theme of.
Yes, so I also would have our executive director, Patrick Kelly, come on up. The ARPA update this month is twofold. We have been working to potentially secure funds that may be helpful if we're able to find an airboat that isn't new. We may also be able to reduce the cost. That's something that we're looking at and working on. Also, with regards to the American Rescue Act plan funds, we're looking to provide our next update with regards to reporting. So there have been quite a few changes. They have rolled out 2 interim final rules, which we continue to follow along, and in seminars and different updates from the federal government that are mostly more confusing than the last. But we still do our best to implement what they're attempting to do. They're trying to provide additional clarity on what the spend means. I know that's something we've debated many times, whether spend means money has to be spent, whether spend means contract has to be signed, and how in between where the work is completed, because we have a number of projects underway that we're very respectful of the 24, but there's also that date out in 26 that we're paying attention to. So we'll keep you updated, but we're learning as much as we can, and certainly with our partners at the NDA. We have a resolution that we spoke about briefly, but last time, but that we were requesting a review of.
This resolution is for the review of the American Rescue Plan Act appropriation for the SLCIDA and amending the funding categories for economic development and tourism. Sure. It's perfect. Second. Thank you. Very good.
So, as you see on the back of the resolution, this is not an increase in funding overall. This is a reallocation based on our 1.5 years worth of experience administering the programs. I think based on our discussion with the original committee and the now existing ARPA committee, that the request is pretty much in line with what the wishes of the board had always been. So I don't really anticipate any sticking points. For example, facilities and infrastructure improvements, that original funding category was $1 million. We have allocated that $1 million. Our request is that be increased by $450,000. That was one of the categories I think that was originally increased in our first, the original version of this program after the request of the County Board of Legislators ARPA committee. They wanted to see more money go into things that were lasting and maybe more permanent and had a longer term impact on the businesses, the communities, and the county in general. We agree with that. We've seen great interest in that program throughout the county. We've approved over 50 awards in that program, and the request is increase it by 400. The small business and nonprofit assistance program, and obviously to get up to 450, the money's got to come from somewhere else. We're requesting a modification to reduce the small business and nonprofit assistance award category by 50,000. So that was originally 300,000. We've awarded about 180,000. But as we look at the horizon and the businesses that we've gotten to and talked to, we think that by moving 50,000, we'll still have ample funding left to do some good in that category. New hire and existing worker training, we're requesting to modify that by reducing that category of 250,000. One of the things that we've seen, we initially wanted a lot of money in these training programs. What we've tried to do is leverage the money that we have, make it last as long as it can, in light of some of these timelines that Ruth just mentioned. Between some of the existing WIOA funding and other funding sources, that's been a harder program to allocate. So we're recommending that reduction. The new total will be 350,000. We've awarded about 270,000, 40 different awards in that category. So that money's been awarded. It has not all been spent. So some of these, I'll use the term awarded versus how much has actually been spent. And in the grand total, we're administering on your behalf about 3.4 million, and we've allocated about 2.4 million. So in terms of where we are in the top, I think we're in good shape. I don't think we're gonna be scrambling at the end, but we also wanna make sure that we put the money in the right categories to spend it best. Heavy equipment operator training, we're requesting a modification to reduce that by 50,000. That is a program that we're working on. We created with BOCES. It's offered at the Southwest Tech Center. About 10 individuals went through it with ARPA financing. BOCES went out based on the model we created together and wrote a Reimagine New York State grant, and we're provided $170,000 for that program. So that will fully cover, we think, the next couple of classes. We're leaving 50,000 for what we hope is a third class after their money has been spent, but still in time to spend it within the ARPA guidelines. And then the last one is healthcare skills development. Another one looks like a dramatic drop. You're cutting that by 100,000. Same thing, created with BOCES. They have gone out and secured same grant program, New York State Reimagine grant, $80,000. You'll see it's nearly a wash. That will handle the demand, we think. And again, the money's better spent in other categories and I think more efficient. It's the summary of our request. Sorry.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I think one of the important things to take away from this is one of the goals of the staff at the IDA has been, where possible, to use the money that this board provided to encourage additional funds, matching funds, to achieve the same goals. So as you know, with the heavy equipment operator and health skills, they have gotten additional funding made available. So we're able to move some of that funding to areas that are in high demand. So I appreciate the hard work that the IDA staff has done and their efforts to try to get all around the county into many smaller communities and larger communities, and try to provide some assistance that traditionally has not been available in the county. So I think we're seeing a real good bang for our buck, and they have a good idea of where the funds are not being used as much, and where we can move the funds to keep things moving along, because as Ruth says, we only have a certain amount of time to award these funds, and we really don't want to give any of it back to the feds.
Sorry. I'll add, I didn't say, within the CDL program, you'll see that's not in here. That was a separate allocation of funding for the CDLA program. Piggybacking on what Legislator Reagan said, we worked with the Cornell Cooperative Extension, we wrote a grant to the USDA for $35,000 for funding for that program. Another example, they did all the work, not trying to take credit for it, but we're leveraging, we're using some of the ARPA funding you provided as a match that'll bring in $35,000 for on-farm trainees within the program. So same kind of example of trying to have a multiplier effect to the money that we're.
And just in case anyone has questions, some, that's why in some cases, when people are seeking to enroll in these programs, they're asked to formally apply in order to see if they qualify for additional state or federal funds in order to make the funds that we're making available go farther. So, people are like, well, why can't you just tell me? It's like, no, you've got to actually fill out the paperwork and go through the process. And, we need to find out whether or not you qualify for these other program funding so that our money goes farther and assist those who aren't quite as eligible. So some of the towns have been like, well, why don't you just put my guy in there? It's like, well, gotta fill out paperwork. So, and Patrick and his office are available to walk any of the people or towns through the process to get them into it.
Pat, on the last one, the healthcare skills development. You said that the state was providing some money there, which would offset that, but could you just explain that a little more? You said you anticipated this to be in the area of the OC's programs?
Yeah, BOCES does the training for this program. There's a series of specialty areas within healthcare that they do programming. And it's meant to have like a laddering impact where we can have, I don't even know if I want to phlebotomy as an example, where they have these different modules within the program that are meant to build somebody at the entry level of their skill set within healthcare, because there's this huge need for healthcare workers. So we created a program and said, okay, what could we do to help the entry level workers kind of ladder up to more higher pay, better positions, better opportunity. This was the program that was created. They used the exact same format for their grant to New York State, and it's committed supplemented what we were gonna do.
So this is certainly an area, I think that there's a need there that we're seeing in the county and other places, but I want to make sure that we don't leave this short. Are you confident that this is going to cover what you anticipated, what you hoped for?
Yes, ideally, what I would say is pass a resolution that lets us move the money around all the time within the categories, because things change month to month. We're taking the best look that we can based on the expenditures and the demand that we've seen. I think by leaving within these training categories, by leaving some money in the new and existing program, if there's a shortfall within the medical training, we can use some of that money. Some of them, there's some carryover between the categories. And we looked at the number of registrants that we've had, the average cost, the outside funding sources. And we think these numbers, we talked with BOCES about how far will their money go. And right now, we think this is the best match. And I think you'd always wish you had an evergreen source of funding for these kinds of programs. But I think the facilities program, some of the others will certainly, a lot more money in those programs, but it's going a lot faster. I think we're going to get to the end of this ARPA endeavor, and they're all going to kind of be needed right around the same time. So, Nisha?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pat, this is, we first received the ARPA funds and a couple of years ago, and there was a great deal of discussion of what to do with them. And I know I was, as was the entire board, opponent of using the money across the broad spectrum where it was going to impact the greatest number of people in the county. And, I think about the facility and infrastructure improvements. I have 3 towns within my district that have benefited. And, I think about some of the small businesses, that have benefited. Star Lake American Legion, they needed a new roof. They were able to get a new roof. The Ham Radio Operators Association. Ham Radio Association, Operators Association, they're a critical part of the emergency services that's provided to the county and to the nation. They were in need of a repeater. Didn't have any money. They were able to get a repeater. Combined hospital, snowmobile clubs, improved broadband availability. Just so many places, there's so many good things that we've done with this money. And, I just want to thank you for being a very good partner in helping to administer these funds. Thank you.
It was, I've said this before, it was your money to allocate how you see fit. These were our ideas for what we thought the need was at the time. And it's been, enlightened, and what I hope is, and I've said this to some of you, I hope people see the difference, have our own local control and flexibility versus when we're, working in the state world. It's the ability to be responsive. Some of those examples you gave, off the shelf IDA stuff can do nothing for them. It's just, we just don't have that flexibility. And even the LDC and some of the loan programs fits there. I have a couple, I worry that 2 or 3 years from now, the expectation is gonna be, well, geez, if I need something, I'll just call the county or I'll call the IDA. And we're gonna have a bit of a bumpy landing on that, I think, with some of these things. And as far as getting out to the county, I mean, the referrals we've gotten from the legislators have been phenomenal. I get calls from people who talk, your constituents who talk with you, calls from legislators, there's still funding there. If you have instances where you think there's somewhere that might need help, reach out to us, let us know, and we will, I think, hopefully you've seen firsthand, we'll run this stuff down as quickly as we can. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Patrick, thank you for taking on this endeavor here. I know it's quite a task, but you're the one with the boots on the ground, so you know where these funds need to be reallocated. So I trust where that is. And thank you for evaluating that and coming back to us.
Thank you. So Webster.
What's the final date that the ARPA funds have to earmark for before you lose them?
Allocated by the end of 2024, expended by 2025.
Okay.
And I think I heard Ruth talking about just what are some of these definitions? Because you might be bold and say, well, we allocated it to a training program that might take another couple of years. I think the intent is you get it spent and it's out the door. And then one of our challenges is going to be, as we get closer to that end period, some of these ones where we've made an allocation, a lot of it's reimbursement based, or there's some proof of activity before money changes hands with many of these programs. If we're getting to the point where we're getting near the end of 2025, or hopefully we won't let it get that far, but we got our eye on it. And we've done some reallocations within awards. Like if somebody was awarded making up a number 7,500 and they're spending 5 and 5 is going to do it, that's 2,500 we can, within that same program, send somewhere else.
It's nice to see you're doing a great job investing as a real life experience where local people are gonna be able to learn something new.
Thank you. Mr. Fitt.
I just like to say that I saw what your modification did for us today. I was in a doctor's office and the staff member that both seems to be working.
Great, great. And a little more informed answer for your question, Harry. A medical assistant training consists of EKG technician or administrative medical assistant, phlebotomy technician, got that one right. Clinical skills for the medical assistant, medical terminology, some instrumentation training, so it's kind of a wide range within the medical setting.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Sure. Next, we have the county administrator's report. Authorizing the chair to sign a contract with the New York State Unified Court System to provide cleaning and minor repair services to the court facilities at the county complex. Need a motion. Second by Mr. Bishop.
So we are reimbursed for a portion of our. We're up to, you know, 5 years.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have modified the 2022 budget for the county administrator's office for costs associated with community college tuition. Motion from Chair and clerk.
So this resolution comes before you, I think we talked a little bit about this last week with community colleges. We don't ever know how many certificates of residency we may see in a year, or how many students who have certificates of residency may enroll, or how many classes those students who have the certificates of residency in any given year may take. So the variables we look at trending associated with our spend. As you know, when you approve tonight, those are charged back on a 2-year rolling lag. And we work with the treasurer's office, works with the local municipalities to make sure they have an opportunity to review and challenge any that they may suspect are not valid. But there is a system in place. And this year we're looking at an increase of 200,000 associated with not only the remainder of the year, but what we see that comes in after the year is closed, the winter term classes as well. Questions?
Great.
Just a comment, I know a lot of you, your towns, question, these chargebacks to their communities. I think it's important that, you might consider, advising your town boards that, they should be encouraging their school districts, guidance people to encourage their students to look at our career colleges like SUNY Canton, and others that, you know, we have to pay, or the towns have to pay for kids that go to community colleges. But the same programs are also, in many cases, offered at SUNY Canton, Morrisville, and at the, what used to be considered the Ag and Tech colleges. And I know many years ago, the board, I'm going back, you know, more than 30 years ago, the board made an effort to try to educate the school districts that the same programs are available at the SUNY colleges, and that it would actually affect the town's bottom lines.
Well,
Also, just to share, the review of this and understanding we need to appropriate more, we looked next year at improving the budget by almost 60,000. So we looked at increasing that for next year. So that you're
Just to follow up what Jim said, I'm guessing that school counselors would probably advise the school to pursue education that maybe is less costly for them. I don't know that. I understand the principle of not having the cost passed on to us and then on to the, but that cost is passed
the thought. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have establishing the date and time for the organizational board meeting. Purpose of Mr. Chairman, thank you.
So annually, the resolution is put through so that it's adopted in December, as we will not have a schedule adopted until the January meeting. We hold business the first business day of the year, so following the New Year's holiday, we convene the first business day. The requirement is to convene, I believe, within the first 10 days. Our practice has always been the first business.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we have adopting local law D for the year 2023, tax override for fiscal year 2024.
So this is the second part of the local law process. Last month, you considered the proposed and allowed us to set the public hearing. That will be at 5:50 on December 4th. As a reminder, twofold, the request is just under 600,000 over what's currently available for the 2024 tax cap, as well as the treasurer's office was advised that our tax cap this year will be audited. So as a proactive measure, our request is to override.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
So to update and correct the questions that you had about the state compact funds, today we received 1.5 million from the state for 14 months. So continued reconciliation and the payments will be coming forward for our towns in the near future, but we're happy to see some movement on that. Last week, our second standing committee of our Buildings and Grounds Committee took place. We have finished the global overview associated with our long list of items from either deferred maintenance or new construction projects that are of interest or of necessity. So we are now moving forward, looking to continue those every other week meeting, second and fourth Wednesday, but to focus our efforts more directly going forward, because we can continue to review the issues, we can continue to review the challenges, but we'd really like to be able to bring forward some material in terms of making adjustments, either recommended projects. Many are underway. I think many of you stopped in the clerk's office. Our social services is currently under major construction as far as updates go. Very soon the county attorney's office. So we're moving through some of those that you're aware of, the modest updates, carpet, cubicles, things like that. But we're also talking more structural, the old jail, our public safety complex, things of that nature. So I appreciate Chair Denisha making that standing meeting. And that agenda will continue to grow and bring recommendations forward for full board consideration. Speaking of that, tomorrow, in terms of our public safety complex project, tomorrow is bid opening day. This morning, we met with the Village of Canton with regards to the request about Pearl Street, the section from Pearl and Court intersection back to our driveway. About the potential for utilizing that in a restricted access area for our project. Talk to the village about the opportunity to partner on some stormwater management. Now, you are aware and approved the grant that we've received for the courthouse study to determine actions necessary in the future. We want to work with the Village of Canton on that and being good neighbors. Also talking about our project and the intersection of Pearl and Court Street may require some additional stormwater management equipment. Whether that is storm drains, things of that nature. We'd like to talk more with the village about that. And when it comes to making recommendations for improvements, talk about how we may assist in something that is certainly going to affect our ability to continue to preserve our facilities. So a good meeting, and certainly if they have questions, they're going to come back to us. But our hope is that we're moving forward very shortly with that. Any questions for me?
Moving on to old new business. Is there any old business?
We have a resolution.
We do have.
They're new. It's supposed to be new.
It would be new. But, very old business. No, moving on to new business. First, we have probation. Resolution is for authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Subtle Waste Services for refuse services for the Harrogate Commons in Sweden, New York, for the district office. Need a motion? Others, Mr. Perkins, thank you.
So our contract with Pelican comes to an end at the end of this year. Comes to an end at the end of this year. I did check with a couple other companies to see if anybody could beat their rate. One company responded, their rate was $300, it's gonna be $224 with tax. They called back again later and said that they were actually gonna reduce it to 200, 216. Casella's does it for 121.71, so I recommend Casella. Been doing their garbage removal since we moved into the GPAT building. We've never had any issues.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Carol L. Hole Morlock for fee services. District offices located at Harrogate Commons, New York. First, Smithers, second, Perkins, Kern. Third.
So just like highway, the cleaning contract was put out to bid. Carol has been doing our Messina office for the last few years. She does a great job. She came in with the lowest bid for $28. That would stay with her.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Fund for probation, we have authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Neola Enterprise for cleaning services at district offices located at 99 West Main Street, Governor, New York. Perkins.
This is the last resolution. We're asking for cleaning services for our governor office. This is the first time we've had actually a cleaner in governor and the staff in the building themselves. It's been way too time consuming. And then when we remodeled the building, we decided to go with a cleaner. So again, this was just put out the bid. We go with the cheapest, they're $32.50 an hour, with a $10 round trip.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have social services. This resolution is for authorizing the chair to sign a contract and step-by-step incorporated the operation of a warming center and modifying the 2023 budget for the Department of Social Services. The motion. Karen, Perkins, Reagan, that's it.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you. Good evening. So last week, I know Commissioner Sieber spoke with you all about the homeless crisis that we face in the county, as well as some of the plans that we have going forward. This is one of those plans. It's for the warming center. It will be operated by staff in Augsburg. They'll provide services for the blue period, which typically is October 1st to March 31st of the year. And they will be operating from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. They'll be offering meals, showers, laundry services, connecting to other services if we're able to do that. And we'll be doing some other, stuff along those lines going forward. So this is just to kind of get the warming center and the stuff.
Discussion? Sure.
I just want to say thank you very much. Ogdensburg is a community that truly has a great need. We don't think about that often because they're a city, but Mr. Reagan would tell you that one of the greatest things we face there is the homeless that have nowhere to turn. So thank you. This is a lot. You can go in, you can get a shower. You can be in from, I think it's
8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Okay, so get a shower, do your laundry, there's an opportunity for a meal. And many nights, there's just really not a hotel for DSS to find for people. And this just fills a great need in that community. And I think people even from around the county can be brought there. So maybe we could put up something about this on our website, just so people are better aware of it. Thank you.
Well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for all your hard work in making this happen. I think that one of the important things to keep in mind with this is, once these people come into the warming center, they'll be, they'll have the opportunity to work with, peers from, some of the agencies, and they'll have an opportunity to learn about, some of the services that are available to them and get, help getting into, if it's appropriate, addiction treatment, mental health, you know, possibly into temporary or permanent housing. Your task force has done a terrific job of, you know, I think the report last month was 320 people that were homeless, that were assisted, and 220 or so were put into permanent housing around the county. And, you know, I think that, as I said last month, or last week, a lot of people think that no one's doing anything about this problem. The fact that over the past 10 months, your agency has worked with 320 people and gotten them help, and 220 of them into permanent housing is a huge accomplishment, and shows that your department's working very, very hard, your staff's working very, very hard, and is making progress at assisting many of these people who have, you know, made poor choices in their life and are now homeless because of it. And, you know, often they are their own worst enemy, and, you know, they're a hard population to assist. You know, I think that this should not be looked at just as a warming center alone. It is a entryway into assistance and a better life, and help in getting more permanent housing, and help with their addictions and their, in some cases, mental health issues and other needs.
Anyone? All those in favor?
And
Opposed? Motion carried.
I have nothing to report from my last report. However, our next cooperative extension board meeting will be Thursday, December.
All persons? Yeah. Next is Mr. Sheridan with the Fish and Wildlife Management Board. 6.
Chairman, the Fish and Wildlife Board does not met this month, but we will be meeting on the 21st of December.
Sir. Mrs. Terminelli from Zoom, the Fisheries and Advisory Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we met last on October 24th, and primarily discussion was a lot about Black Lake and tagging fish to monitor the mortality rates after fishing tournaments as well. They were looking at discussion about the northern pike, the population. They seem to be not the right size. So they would like to see an increase. Just as a reminder, last year in April, they updated the fishing regulations. And so just kind of discussion about what does the feedback look like in between when they set up new regulations, you know, as far as providing feedback from the fisheries or from the different bodies of water, so that the DEC is constantly in the loop about how it's really impacting the population and the size of the fish for the people that, you know, fish in those areas. We also talked about walleye stocking, and in Black Lake primarily. And the DEC won't sanction any more stocking because the fry get eaten before before they grow to a large enough size. Talked a little bit about water quality testing in and up the river in Black Lake due to the low oxygen levels. Talked about water chestnut pulling, moving down the Oswegatchie to the St. Lawrence River. And then the last thing was the Black Lake Fish and Game building grand opening. Their visitor center grand opening will be coming soon, and they're going to have virtual clay shooting tournaments and a club actually that will be meeting there. So that's it. Our next meeting is January 30th.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Smithers with the Governor Fair Board.
The Governor Fair Board met November 15th, and I did not attend that as I had another conflict that night being a Wednesday, and I haven't received the minutes from that meeting yet, so I have nothing new to report for the Governor Fair Board.
All right, sticking with you, anything for the Highway and Solid Waste Committee?
Nothing further than what was reported by our commissioner.
Mr. Reagan? Industrial Development Agency?
Nothing to report, Mr. Chair. The IDA did not meet in November.
Sir. Next is the Recreational and Trails Advisory Board.
Nothing to report at this time.
Mr. Forsyth out. Does anyone have any coverage for the St. Lawrence River and Valley Redevelopment Agency? Moving on, yeah, excellent. Mr. Webster, the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce.
We have met this month, the next meeting week, December 14th. They're working hard to put their budget together, just like everybody else. They're busy. Thanks, sir.
Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors, Ms. Burke.
Soil and Water met last Thursday. Climate resistant agriculture, 3 out of 4 of their grants were approved for $750,000. The next round of AEM funding is been approved, and that's $400,000 over a 2-year span, and that covered crops and meeting. Oh, and also they said that the gentleman that's doing the tree removal for the county, he hopes to start early. He has another contract that he's got to work on downstate. So the thought is that he would be starting shortly in December, which is good. That's good. That's it. The next meeting is the end of January.
Executive session. Doyle, is there a need for executive session?
There is for negotiation, litigation, and appointments.
May I have a motion to go into executive session? Aaron, Smithers, Mr. Chair, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
How are the boys?
Is there any further business?
Motion to
Okay. Sure, thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.